In this episode, we're going to learn how to hydrate for your marathon journey. All right, so I'm on here with Serena, a registered dietitian that we've had on the podcast before. Serena, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hello, Letty. I'm so excited to be back.
I know, I'm so excited to have you too because I always love all your input. And for those who are new viewers and listeners, maybe introduce yourself and tell us what your expertise is.
Awesome. My name is Serena. I'm a registered dietitian and I specialize in working with female runners, but definitely today's advice is going to apply to the men who are listening. And I really help runners quit dieting so that they can chase performance PRs, improve metabolism, and hormones.
Love it, love it. And today we're going to hop into a very, very basic topic, yet there's so much stuff that we all can still learn, which is it's been summertime since mid-May in Florida, and now it's summertime everywhere else as well. So we wanted to talk a little bit about hydration, the basics, and the individual needs. So maybe you can jumpstart us and explain the fundamental importance of hydration for runners and everything that goes on with the whole thirst.
Absolutely. So I think, like you said, it's like so basic, but when it comes to long distance running, it does become a little bit more, I don't know if complicated is the word, but you definitely have to like be intentional. I think that's the best way to think about it. So, it's pretty obvious that we're sweating more. And if you are living in humidity, then it's important for you to know that your hydration needs are going to be increased. And I think another important thing to know is that it's not enough to just drink more water because not only are we sweating out water and fluid, but we're also sweating out electrolytes. Namely, we're sweating out sodium or salt. So, as a long distance runner, it is important to know that once the weather is consistently warmer or more humid, we definitely need to increase our overall hydration needs.
Perfect. And maybe you can go even more basic and tell us what are some physiological processes that rely on that proper hydration.
Yeah, so performance can be affected with as little as 1% dehydration. So I feel like in the summer you're like kind of guaranteed to be affected by that. Even when you're really trying hard to hydrate, it can just be really hard to stay on top of it. But essentially our whole entire body, like all the cells in our body rely on proper hydration. So we might feel like brain foggy, we might feel tired or fatigued. Our digestive system is super duper affected by hydration. So this is another one where people will be blaming like their gels for their GI distress. And I'm like, have you hydrated properly? And that's really the key. So really systemically, the whole entire body is affected by dehydration. And it's why we really need to be thinking about it when we're running, but also when we're not running. We need to be making sure we're choosing hydrating foods like fruits and veggies, and we're drinking enough fluid during the day. And I usually tell my athletes to just drink a sports beverage every day when it's warm outside, even if you're not working out that day.
That's interesting. So you mentioned already a couple of signs of dehydration. What are some other ones that we as runners need to look for, and when do they happen? Is it in the middle of a run, or can it be after, before?
Yeah, it can be during a run or it can be after a run for sure. So I would say things like cramping, headache, you might feel thirst. You may not feel thirst too, though. So that's confusing. Sometimes you might just notice you're like fixated on a salty food. So you might be like, I just want to drink like broth. And you're like, this is weird. It's a billion degrees outside. Why am I craving chicken soup? Like that could be a sign of dehydration. So cramping, fatigue, headache, and then GI issues. So diarrhea, bloating, cramping, like in your belly, not just like your muscle cramps, can all be signs of dehydration during a run or even after your run. Maybe you get through the run and then you come home and you're like, God, like I have diarrhea, or oh my God, my head is splitting. It hurts so bad. Or oh, I really want broth right now. I really want salty potato chips right now. These can all be signs of that you didn't maybe do the best job of either hydrating or hydrating and getting enough electrolytes. I think both of those pieces of the puzzle are important, getting enough fluid and getting enough electrolytes.
Interesting. And I know that every person is different, and you kind of alluded to that, everybody's sweating is different, but are there any general formulas that you can factor into that to figure out how dehydrated or not dehydrated you are?
Yeah. So I think for those of you who are like data nerds and really want to get honed in on the specifics, what we can do is we can do like a sweat rate test. And what we would do is we're going to try our best to, this isn't necessarily ideal nutrition. It's kind of like a science experiment. So I just want to like put that out there. I don't want you doing this every day. I tend to tell athletes do it when the seasons change. So maybe you do a few sweat tests in the spring, maybe you do a few in the fall, the summer, the winter, because the sweat rate is going to be influenced by the weather. But we're going to wake up in the morning, we're going to go to the bathroom, we're going to step on the scale, probably in the nude, and just see how much you weigh. And then you're going to go running for, I like to say 60 minutes, but if you were like, I can only do this for 30 minutes, and then you can just like double the number to get that 60-minute sweat rate, that's okay. And so you're not going to drink anything on this run, eat anything on this run, or hopefully not go to the bathroom on this run. Because basically what we're doing then is we're coming home, we're taking our clothes off, and we're weighing ourselves again. And so that amount of weight that was lost during that run, you're not burning fat, you're measuring how much fluid you sweated out. And so then you can kind of get a calculation for your sweat rate. So if you lost like half a pound, then we need to replete with 8 ounces of fluid per hour. So that's kind of a good way to kind of calculate that sweat rate and to kind of know on a daily basis, I want to maybe be drinking an extra 8 ounces of fluid a day if I'm working out for an hour, because I know that that's how much I'm losing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's really interesting. That makes a lot of sense. And then when you are drinking, are you just drinking water or are you doing the whole electrolyte?
Yes, thank you for catching me there. And yeah, I would say if you are working out in the hot weather, we would want to probably take that 8 ounces. Again, this is just in this example from a sports drink that does have sodium in it. You can always like make your own if you wanted to like have some broth afterwards, or I have athletes that'll mix like Pedialyte with some apple juice and kind of like make their own sports beverage. That's fine too. But really, we're looking for something salty. And this is always where I want to throw coconut water under the bus real quick. I actually was at like a hot yoga class last week, and the yoga instructor was like telling us all to go home and drink coconut water. And like, listen, coconut water is great, but it doesn't have salt in it. It's a potassium rich electrolyte beverage, but it's not rich in sodium, which is really what we're losing when we're sweating. So you can drink coconut water, but add salt to it because that's really the thing that we need to fire on all cylinders after sweating profusely.
I did not know that. Thanks for
Mhm.
clarifying that. I've seen it on race courses before, and I just always assume it has sodium in it.
It's very high in potassium, which is an electrolyte that we're losing when we sweat. But the one that's really gonna have that biggest effect on us feeling good is replacing sodium because that's the one we're losing in the greatest quantity.
And then is there such a thing as adding too much sodium to your beverage? Because I think you and I have talked about it before when I come back home from a run. I don't know, mix my Gatorade or whatever I have and I throw a ton of salt in it. And then after a shower, I try to continue drinking the same beverage and I can't do it because it's awful.
Yeah, and so I think that's really interesting. Like your body's kind of telling you, right? Like your body is like, oh, this really salty beverage tastes really good the first 8 ounces I drink of it. And then you maybe get like to the ninth ounce and you're like, okay, now I'm good. And then at that point, maybe it's like a sign to switch to water. So I generally say that when we're thinking of sports beverages, we want to zoom out and we want to think about how do I make my sports beverage the most hydrating? Because again, we can drink something and it doesn't necessarily hydrate. For instance, fun fact, like milk is a fluid, but when we're drinking milk, it's not necessarily the most hydrating because it has so much protein in it, and protein is dehydrating. So just because you're drinking a fluid doesn't mean like you're doing the best job at hydrating. So when we're thinking of sports beverages, we actually do want there to be some calories and sugar in there. And I'm kind of focusing right now on intra-run fluid hydration, not post run or pre run. So we want some sugar in there because the sugar is going to help the body absorb the electrolytes. So I always think of sugar as like the little dude who's knocking on the door to the cells and spiking insulin. I think we maybe have talked about this on the podcast before. And so we need that little dude knocking on the door of the cells to let the electrolytes in efficiently, especially when our body's in this stressed out state in the middle of a long run. So we want there to be about like 3 to 7% of our calories coming from sugar when we're choosing an intra-run hydration beverage. So that wasn't necessarily answering your question, but that's part of the equation when we're thinking intra-run. Then when we're thinking about how many milligrams of sodium do we typically want in a hydration beverage, generally we're aiming for around like 300 to 400 milligrams of sodium per like 12 to 16 ounces. That's usually a good amount where we're rehydrating the body, but we're not getting to those higher salt amounts. Now, everyone loses salt at different rates, so that's not like a blanket statement, but that's like a good general target, I would say.
Interesting. Thanks
Mhm.
for saying that. And also about the milk. That's another interesting thing that somebody who's not in the field of nutrition, I didn't know that. And I guess since we're talking about things that your body crave, I want to hear what your thoughts are about drinking to thirst. Is that approach good, or when you're a runner, is that something that you should kind of stay away from, or is it situational?
Yeah, I would say we don't want to rely too heavily on thirst. Again, I'm kind of talking about intra-run, like while we are running. And the reason because if we wait till we're thirsty to start drinking, at that point, we're going to want to drink so much fluid and I'm sure if you're a runner, you can relate to this. Like chugging fluid in the middle of a run is uncomfortable. We get that sloshy stomach. We maybe get cramps because our belly gets really full. And so it's such a tricky game to figure out hydration because it's constantly changing depending on the weather. If you are a female athlete who's getting her cycle, our hydration needs actually change. Like PMS week, we actually be at higher risk of dehydration. So we have that super duper fun thing to play around with here. So it's not like you can just like test this and be like, I'm an 8 ounce per hour kind of girl with this specific drink. Like if the dew point is above 60 that day, you may want more to drink or you may want extra salt tabs. I completely forgot your question. I was like
Oh,
going on
no,
this
you're fine. You're
rant.
answering it. It was the whole drinking to thirst, which
Oh,
is, yeah.
thank you. Okay. So I always tell my athletes to generally want to have like something like 12 to 16 ounces of, I usually say sports drink with sugar about an hour before your run. I know we can't be perfect. Some of us are running at 5:30 in the morning. Try your best. And then during our run, especially if it's a long run over 60 minutes, for me, when it's really hot and humid here, even if it's like a 30-minute run, I will just be sipping during my run. But I really try and drink like every 10 to 15 minutes, taking a sip. And that way we're staying ahead of thirst. Like you're probably not actually thirsty yet, but we're trying to prevent ourselves getting to that place of I'm so thirsty and I need to chug a bunch of water. So I think that answered your question. We want to be strategic. We don't want to wait until we're thirsty to start drinking.
And for the purposes of what you were just saying for a run, is there any distance, or I guess let's say time on your feet, because everybody's mile pace is different, where you would say, okay, this is definitely a run that you can just get out the door and get it done because it's not too crucial, because even if you get a little dehydrated, it's nothing huge, or is there like a time limit for that?
I mean, generally, I say long runs, we want to make sure we're taking hydration with us. So again, like I want to acknowledge I'm a dietitian, but I'm also like a runner and I'm a human being. It's annoying to carry your beverage. Like it's annoying to carry the hydration vessel. It's annoying to wear the vest. Even if you like have it in a bottle in your car and you're stopping and you're drinking, like all of the ways of getting hydration in are annoying. I hear you. Like I get it. But what I like to always tell people is like getting dehydrated is also really annoying. Not getting the most out of your workout because again, 1% dehydration equals a lapse in performance. That's also annoying. So we have to choose our annoying. So I would say if you're running over 60 minutes, like I would choose the annoying and bring the hydration. Again, because I don't know. I'm like fair. I have freckles. I think I'm like very sensitive to heat. Even if it's like just a 30-minute run and it's annoying, I'll bring my scratch with me. I'll just like bring it. And I don't know. It's worth it to me personally. So, but I would say 60 minutes in the hot weather, please bring a beverage.
Okay, perfect. And my next line of questions you already kind of answered by answering this questions. I was going to ask you about GI issues and
Mhm.
the contribution of improper hydration, meaning too little or too much, and also specific strategies. You said you're taking your liquid with you. Are there any other things that we should know about GI issues that are caused by overhydration or dehydration?
Yeah, so it's interesting, right? Because it can be if it's really about those electrolytes, right? It's about nailing that electrolyte intake. So you can overhydrate and feel that like sloshy stomach, that discomfort. We can underhydrate and really get that kind of like leaky stomach lining and that leaky GI lining that kind of leads to diarrhea. So we really are trying to like nail it. So some tips and tricks. One thing I would say is when we are thinking about choosing our hydration plan, I think in the summer it becomes really tempting to be like, ooh, like more is better, right? Like more sodium is better. That's what Serena's saying. You do need to be careful because if we take a sports drink powder, let's say like Noom Podium, and we start just like saying, "Ooh, more is better. Let me just put like 4 scoops into my 17-ounce Nathan handheld." We are making the beverage have too many, so it's hypertonic, which basically means like there's too many particles per the amount of fluid that is in that vessel, where it actually causes um GI distress. So it's important for us to be following the mixing instructions on the packet, that we're not just making like a super like high sodium, high carb beverage, because that potentially won't sit well in your belly. This isn't, again, every person is different, but I do find this to be very common. So we do want to kind of be thinking about, do I have a beverage that has less than 8% of calories coming from sugar? If you have a sensitive belly, like I'm raising my hand, I do, I really have to be careful. It's like less than 5%, maybe even 4%. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the total volume. Sorry, I have to like write this down because it's math. You have to take the total volume and turn it into milliliters. So let's say it's 8 ounces. 8 times 30 equals 240 milliliters. So it's always the ounces times 30 equals milliliters. And if you're like, don't live in the US, you're like, duh, but okay. I live in the US. So we get the milliliters. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take the total carbohydrate. So we're not looking at sugar, we're looking at the total carb, and we're going to divide it by the milliliters. So let's say, again, I'm like, where's my phone? So let's say I have a beverage in it that has 15 grams of total carbohydrate. I'm dividing it by 240 milliliters. I now get 0.0625. I'm going to multiply it by 100 to get the percentage. This is a 6% carbohydrate beverage, and that should be tolerated well by most people. Again, though, if you have a sensitive belly, you might have to go as low as 3, 4, or 5%. If it's above 8%, you might tolerate it okay, but just like kind of have that warning bell that potentially that could cause GI issues. Again, I completely forgot the question you asked me.
No, you were giving me
Yeah,
amazing tips. And
yeah.
just to kind of throw this in there, I had a friend of mine that I think she had a very sensitive stomach. And so she had the hardest time running these marathons where there are the big gulps of Gatorade where they pre-mix them with the Gatorade powder. I enjoyed them because I was like, oh, these are really sweet. This is really hitting my spot, what I need. And for her, it was like, I cannot even drink this. She's ended up carrying her own beverage because the whole sugary beverage really affected her badly.
Yeah. And so if you are somebody like, I won't ever take sports drinks on the course because I just don't know how it was mixed. And again, like my belly is sensitive. And so I just rather mix it myself and like, do the math beforehand, right? So I have a 17-ounce Nathan that I'm going to be carrying with me on my half marathon. And I want to know that the sports beverage mixed in there is less than I mean, usually for me, less than 5%. And then the other thing that we're thinking about is if you do have, so we're looking at the dew point. Don't ask me what dew point means. I just know that dew point is essentially some weatherman calculation of like the humidity is really high. And like when you're sweating, the humidity, the water is not going to be evaporating off your skin as well. And like, you're going to feel like you're dying while you're running. That's my understanding of dew point. But when it's above 60, we really do need to be thinking about, I not only, again, I'm thinking about fluid, but I'm also thinking about sodium. And so that's where I like to kind of add in salt capsules potentially with my clients because I don't necessarily want them drinking, you know, 20 ounces of water, but they might need, or 20 ounces of sports drink, but they might need 800, 1,000 milligrams, 1,200 milligrams of sodium. And it's like, so where does that extra sodium come from? If I'm getting 400 milligrams from my sports drink, I might need to pop a few salt capsules. So we're thinking of salt capsules. We're thinking of sports beverage. Some people want to drink water too because they just get tired of the salt flavor, the sweet flavor of the sports drink. So again, it's like such a simple thing. It's staying hydrated, but it's actually like one of the hardest parts to nail. I would say when you're a long distance runner.
So you brought up a topic that I didn't even have on my list of questions to ask you, but I found it really interesting because I mean we're all familiar with salt tablets. There's a brand called Salt Sticks, and you probably know what I'm talking about. It's a little tablet and you put it in your mouth. It
That's what
has
I take.
something
Mhm.
sweet in it, and then the rest is salt. I usually, when I know I'm running a marathon where the temperatures are a little bit warmer, I just take them every I don't know, 5 kilometers for absolutely no reason except for I probably heard that somewhere. So my question is, if I am running on the course and I am hydrating on every station there is, which is who knows how often they happen, right? But is there something that people should take into consideration on how much they are taking these salt tablets, given that you have a limited amount of fluid that you are taking in, and then how does that dilute in your body?
So I think it really comes down to practicing, Letty, which I know is like so annoying. But I think we really should be paying attention to this, whether you're logging it in like your Strava notes or like my clients in like an athlete boot camp, I have like this beautiful spreadsheet that like will help you track everything and calculate everything for you. But every person is so different. So I've worked with athletes who have very low sodium loss in their sweat. And then there's people like me who are just like, like bleeding sodium. And so the recommendations are different. But I would say it's about practicing. So if you are really like hell bent on not carrying hydration with you for your race day, and you know you're just going to be taking those little like 4 ounce cups at the hydration stations, I would look at my map, my course map. I would say to myself, okay, I'm going to have, again, making this up, 5 aid stations. Maybe realistically, I'll take 2 cups each time. I'm going to be getting around 6-ish ounces total of fluid. 6 times 5 is 30 ounces, 30 ounces to last me my whole marathon. Like, so you're asking for dehydration. But if that's what you want, that's cool. And then, like, you would just need to kind of practice, like, so how much sodium can my belly tolerate? I don't want to make people afraid of sodium. Like, I don't want you guys thinking, like, oh my God, I took in 3,000 milligrams of sodium during my long run. You're sweating out a bunch of it, right? Like sodium really is not this, I think sodium has been very like vilified in American culture at least. And I think it's important for us to remember that as athletes, and again, I'm assuming you do not have high blood pressure. This advice is a little bit different, but not super different if you have high blood pressure. But you're sweating out the sodium. And then the thing that's really important when we're thinking about like risk of high blood pressure is also overall stress and then also potassium intake. So if I was working with an athlete, I would say, hey, girlfriend, I know you are taking in fruits and veggies. I know you're taking in dairy products and nuts and seeds. These are all very high potassium foods that kind of balance that sodium intake. I don't want people to be afraid of sodium because if we're practicing good stress management, which as athletes, a lot of times that exercise just is going to help like improve our overall health anyway. And then two, if you're eating high potassium diet of fruits, vegetables, dairy, legumes, then you're kind of like lowering that risk anyway. And plus you're sweating out all the sodium.
I love this. And I do have two follow-up questions
Yeah.
you brought up with this. You're talking about people with sodium loss. How do you know if you are a salty sweater?
Yeah. Oh my God, such a good question. So if you finish your run and you have like your eyes are stinging, there's like white crustiness on like your hat or your headband, or like you can kind of like rub your finger and get like salt crystals, that's usually a sign that you are a salty sweater.
Okay. And then
Mhm.
another one is you were talking about, I mean, I'd never really thought about how little we actually drink at water stations because even though we grab these cups, half of the time, well, sometimes you can't
Yeah.
even reach them because it's too
You're
crowded.
spilling.
And then you don't drink the whole thing because you also want to pour it on you. So, in your opinion, how many people are dehydrated after a marathon? Because a lot of times you go use a bathroom and it's complete yellow, you know.
Yeah. A lot of people are dehydrated. And I think that's why, like, I think our sport has a little bit of this like toxic mentality of like, oh, I'm hardcore. Like, I don't take gels. I don't drink anything during my marathon. Like, I'm really cool. And I'm like, you're stupid with love and tenderness. But like, no, like that, why are you training so hard for so many months, putting so much effort into your race? And then when it comes for like the day to display what you're made of, you're dehydrating yourself and you're not getting the most out of your performance. Now, we could talk about tactics to kind of um support staying hydrated better when we're going into a situation where we're maybe choosing to only use the water stops, things like carb loading, using hyperhydration tactics that can all kind of help to I don't want to say like remove the danger of dehydration because that's not true, but just almost act like a pillow, like kind of like make it a little like help you out is so that you're maybe getting less dehydrated or dehydrated less quickly. I think that's what I'm trying to say. But that said, really we should be practicing proper hydration.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then when it comes to this proper hydration with the electrolytes, I know we talked about sodium and you said that was probably the most important. And then you gave us a little bit of a glimpse about potassium and how it counterbalances. What else are we looking for if we're looking at a sports drink? What should it contain for it to be a good sports drink that rehydrates you well?
Yeah, so I think the sodium and like I said, the percent of sugar in this in the drink is like the most important things. But sports drinks may also contain potassium. Sometimes they'll have magnesium in there. Sometimes they'll have a little bit of calcium in there. But really, it's that sodium loss that's having the biggest impact. And remember, like after our race, when we're not running, we're taking in electrolytes in the form of our color foods, like our fruits and our vegetables are really jam packed with electrolytes. Our meats, our dairy products, our legumes, they all these things that kind of come from nature have electrolytes naturally occurring in them that are not sodium, right? Like this is where the fear comes from with sodium. People are like, oh, processed food have lots of sodium, and that's true. And so if you're like eating McDonald's and eating every single meal from a package, and then also taking in salt tabs while you're running, then like yeah, I think we have some things to work on, but operating from a place of assuming like you're getting fruits and vegetables, you're eating unprocessed foods, they're going to be loaded with magnesium and calcium and potassium and all these other electrolytes to help balance all that sodium that you're getting in um, when you're taking in your hydration during your run.
I love this. That was my next question. I was just going to
Yeah.
ask you about that because I know you're a huge proponent of whole foods.
Mhm.
So I guess I'm coming to an end with my line of questions, and I appreciate your patience with me. But what
Of
are some
course.
other common misconceptions that you hear from runners regarding hydration and electrolytes that we haven't touched on yet?
I think we kind of touched on everything, unless you can think of something that I think really the biggest thing is like it's not just about water. It's not you can't be taking your like 0 calorie diet sports drink on the run with you. Like you need sugar. Don't be afraid of sugar. It's helping you absorb those electrolytes and really helping with hydration. Um, Maybe we could talk a little bit about caffeine. So, caffeine can be dehydrating, but really we can have up to like 16, 20 ounces of caffeine before it starts to be dehydrating. So, if you during the day you have a morning cup of coffee and you're going for a run, you're not really setting yourself up for dehydration unless you're drinking like, I don't know, like 3 cold brews or something like before you go for a run. Um, so yeah, and I think so if you're thinking about I'm having my cup of coffee and then maybe I'm having a caffeine gel during my race to get that little performance boost, you're probably fine. You're not setting yourself up for dehydration. Um, yeah, and I think it's really it's boring, but it's practice, practice, practice. And so please don't just only hydrate during your races. Please don't only hydrate during your long runs. Like practice it. Again, like it's annoying to get the data, but your Strava or whatever your Garmin is calculating like the humidity that day and all the things. So just jot down like took 2 salt tabs, got 400 milligrams from it, like drink 10 ounces of scratch, got 400 milligrams. Like now we have that data recorded that it was 66 degrees and whatever humidity, and you took 1,000 milligrams and you're going to have it recorded. I felt good that day. Like just pay attention to those things. Because then when race day is coming and you're stalking the weather report, like we all are, like look at your old Garmin data or whatever and be like, okay, that last time it was 66 degrees and X humidity, I took this many grams of sodium and this is how I felt that day. So I think that, like, I know that's a little bit annoying to do and maybe a little bit next level, but if you are somebody who's been racing for a while and you're looking for those like performance hacks, I think that's something to pay attention to.
Yes, and then I guess just like with having a coach for running, it helps to have somebody like you in their corner because there's so much, right? We're talking about coffee dehydrating. We're talking about the fact that the marathon has tables and you might not drink as much as you need to. We're talking about electrolytes. We're talking about what's in the gels. So this is where I'm going to ask you, how can you help our runners? And if they want help, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, I would love for you to DM me at Runner Girl Dietitian, and I would be happy to help you. I have a course called Eat Like an Athlete Bootcamp. You will get all like the downloadable spreadsheets and resources to track all the things, and then I have a group community where you can pester me with questions, show up to group calls. I love this stuff. So it's not annoying to me, right? Like we're juggling a lot of things. And so it's really fun for me to like look at what you're doing and fill out the spreadsheet for you if you need that level of assistance and really help you make sure that you understand what's going on when we're thinking about hydration.
Amazing. Thank you, Serena, so much. And we hope to talk to you again soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Letty.